Okay, so what we're going to cover in this session is an implementation of sparking. What happens when you've hit another ball, you've touched it, and you pick that ball up, place it next to your stroker ball, and play the spark shot. So we're going to have to do a couple of things that are slightly different. But before we do anything, I'd say one of the things that I've done first of all is to take this bit here about the target either being controlled from the lawn or from the 2D minimap out and just made it so that it is only controlled from the minimap. And one of the reasons for doing that is that there is very, very few occasions where you'd actually want to control it from the 3D once you're working in the 2D mini-map. But that's particularly the case when we're sparking, because when we're sparking, we want to move the target around on the mini-map with the balls placed together. So it's a lot more intuitive to do it on the mini-map. So that's been taken away. And then the other main thing is that you can see here we've got this little dialogue, this little menu here, which is just a list of the balls, and these are the balls that we're going to spark. So basically, you can imagine that say we were ball number one as the striker ball, and we said, okay, we want to spark ball number four. We would click four, and four is now paired to the one. And as we rotate the target now, we are moving the number four around the number one. So that's sort of why I've taken control of the target away from the 3D view, or at least made it so that we can move the target even when the balls themselves are being moved in 3D mode, because it allows this pivoting here to happen. So then what will happen is when this button becomes the spark button, and when we play the shot, we're sparking the the the, the target ball, and then the button becomes a stroke button again, and only when we decide that we want to spark a ball, like say the number six, that now becomes a spark, and we're rotating the number six around the number one. So the major change then was in the stroke manager script. So in addition to uh, doing that little thing with the target in the minimap script, we've made some substantial changes to the stroke manager script. And the first tranche of that is a function which is going to be triggered by these buttons, and that will be to set up the spark. So when you click one of those buttons, depending on which button you've clicked, that will identify the ball that's been touched, and the first thing that happens is that we say the balls are now coming from the lawn. Not the target, remember. The target is still coming from the 2D mode. It's always going to come from 2D mode. But the balls are coming from the lawn. And that's important because it enables us to teleport the ball, the touched ball, and place it next to the stroker ball. Now, before we do that, we actually have to do something important to the striker ball, because if we just teleport the touched ball next to it, it will nudge it. So there's two things we have to do. The first is that we have to turn its constraints on. We have to freeze it, stop it from moving. And the next thing we have to do is get rid of its collider, just temporarily, just so that that incoming ball doesn't mess things up, doesn't spring away under tension or something like that. So we bring over the touched ball, and the touched ball that we're going to bring over is, of course, given by the, the number of the button that we've selected. We also disable the collider on that. So we're really making sure we're not going to get any sort of weird pinging, sort of hard collision thing happening while we bring these balls over. And we loosely align it so that it's reasonably close. So it's that's not absolutely next to it. It's close, but not absolutely next to it. We change the hit button to say spark. We make it active, and we say that we're in spark mode. And then we switch the colliders back on for both the touched ball and the striker ball. So we're now in the position where the touch ball and the striker ball are close to each other. Now, what we're then going to do is we're going to, in the update, if you remember how we were in the habit of drawing the 3D aim line, what we're also going to do is we're going to look at the direction between the striker and the target, and we're going to place the touched ball quite precisely now on that line. So we're going to say, where is the striker ball? Put the touched ball exactly 8 centimeters on that trajectory, and that will make it look quite nice in 3D mode. And it will also mean that they're nice and together for when the shot is played. Now, when we play the shot, when we hit the button, and of course hitting the button is hitting the button. There it is. Hitting the button is just the same as before. It makes strike equals true, and that triggers things in this fixed update. Now, instead of the force being applied to the striker ball, the force is going to be applied to the touched ball. So the striker ball will stay where it is, and the touched ball will receive all the force. So that's what will happen here. If we're in spark mode, the touched ball gets the force. If we're not in spark mode, the striker ball gets the force. And if we're in spark mode, the striker ball is constrained for a moment. We make sure that it doesn't. We take away any we take away any constraints that it had on it, because remember, it did have constraints on it before. And then we say, okay, spark mode is over. We're now back to stroking. Get rid of the touch ball. So that's all quite nice. So the major things that have happened in Stroke Manager are, we've got this thing for setting up the spark. We've got something for playing the spark, and we've got something for updating the rotation of the touched ball around the stroker ball in the spark. So those are the only changes that we've made. Everything else here, I think, is the same. But of course, we made these buttons here, and we should be good to go. So the key thing now is just to play around with this and just check that it is behaving properly, that we can stroke the ball, we can we can spark any ball that we touch. And so let's position a few balls around the court, and let's fire a few. So let's fire number 1 at so number 1 is the striker. Fire it at number 10. You'd just glance it. So let's pick number 10 as the ball to be sparked. Let's spark it, and that seems fine. target is moving nicely, we can start hitting balls in selecting them. Um, Number 9 to play. So clearly something's still moving. Let's press stop. That's good. That's stroke. And oh, touch number 1. We could spark number 1 somewhere. Looks like we're off the field of play, but things seem to be working. And really what needs to be done now is lots of just random testing to see if you can break it, because until you actually find a scenario where a button isn't reactivating or you can't make a choice or whatever, then things appear fine. Now, one thing that I think will cause some excitement is if I shoot this ball way off court, then it's crashed into the barrier at the side. That's good. We might need a way though to bring things back if we do go off court like that. So what I've done is I've made it so that if you click the button, the selection button, but you hold shift down at the same time, the ball will move to the corner. So if I want to bring that 9 over, then I press shift and the ball comes over. And that's done with this line of code here. When we choose the new striker, when we click that button, if we are clicking shift, then it will teleport the ball into the corner. And of course, what it's actually doing is teleporting the graphic ball on the mini map into the bottom right hand corner of the mini map. So that's the other addition that we've put in to this section. All right.